And welcome back to our another episode of The Associates. You got David and Jean-Michel today. We
Welcome
tried to
back.
get, yeah, we tried to get somebody else, but everyone's really busy since the market's picking up, right?
Is it? I'm starting to see a little bit more buyer sentiment coming out recently.
I'm
So
just thinking like
we'll see.
buyers are probably feeling that, they will be cutting rates soon. So they're like, I better get in there before prices go up. But it's counterproductive because now we're gonna have, the numbers for inflations will go up because prices are gonna go up. So it's gonna do the opposite, right? So it's gonna slow it down instead of seeing a decrease sooner, it's gonna be later on, right?
We'll see if it's a similar timeline to what we saw in 2023, where the market was very, very slow in January. Prices went up, on average about 10% in the spring, and then it was kind of like this slow sort of bleed for the rest of the year,
Yeah, no, it's
you
true. I
know?
think, well, I mean, that had a big impact because we had June increase and then July increase, right? This year, we're anticipating decreases. Like, what is that going to do? Are we going to get like an adrenaline kick for the end of the year? It's going to be like, hey, guess what? You guys fucked up. You should have bought.
I mean, there's a lot of pain out there in the economy right now, right? So the argument is when are rates going to start to come down? By how much? And then how does that affect, how does that affect the market, right? Like
Yeah.
we were talking about this last week. A lot of people can hold on for a certain period of time, but everybody's got their limits too. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. So, if we're talking about first, inflation actually ticked up last month, so
okay.
it beat expectations.
Yeah.
Now that they were expecting 3.4, or they were expecting 3.1% inflation, and it ended up jumping to 3.4. So that sort of cooled the
Yeah, but
expectation
let's be
they're
realistic
going to
here. Like
cut in
3.4,
the spring.
we're at 3.4. What were we last year at this time? We were like at 6 or 7%, right? Like eight?
We peaked in 2022. We peaked in the summer,
Yeah.
June or July. We peaked at I think it was 8.1%
Yeah.
that inflation peaked at. So things are heading in the right direction. It's just like you said, right? I mean, is a decrease in rates, is that going to, drive inflation back up? It
I
feels like there's still a
honestly
long way
think,
to go with it.
yeah, I honestly think if the Bank of Canada just stopped the increase at 3%, inflation would have done the exact same thing that happened now. I think it was just all what
You say
happened was
that.
that it was just demand and supply issue, because of COVID, a lot of factories closed down, a lot of things stopped producing. So like the demand just went up and up and up and the supply couldn't keep up. And we just had all these things. So it's like as soon as they started increasing the rates, I don't think they needed to go as high as they did. Um,
Probably
but
not.
but again, like they did it and can't go back now. So uh
You know what I question, and maybe this is just like totally naive, but how did the cost of things like fish and like meats, how did those prices skyrocket so much? I get the whole supply chain issue,
yeah.
but what has really, is it the carbon tax that has driven up the transportation, the actual
Yeah, I just think
the
it's greed.
heart
I just think it's greed. They saw an opportunity to increase their prices and they just did, right? Like you just got to look at like even
grocery
companies like
stores, you mean?
Starbucks, like they upped their coffee prices by like $2 or something. Like I remember going to
What's
get
a
a coffee.
coffee
It's
worth now?
like 6, $7 to get a coffee at Starbucks.
That's wild. Okay.
It's
Okay.
insane. I just don't understand. But I just think sometimes like the conspiracy theorist of me thinks this is all a scam. This was all planned. It was like, get it going and just to, widen that gap, it's like, hey, it's like time to make it hurt. Cause like, let's be honest here. Who are these, like, what is this interest rate really hurting? It's the middle class to the lower class, right? Because the upper class is
Sure.
not like this hardly affects them. It's like,
Students and seniors always get hit the hardest,
yeah,
and then the middle class, right?
yeah,
So
I don't know.
yeah.
We got to put our tinfoil hats on and stop this,
I mean, a part of me is with you when it comes to these big corporations, and I've said this before. I think one of the problems in Canada is we only have a few main players in each industry. In groceries, telecom, like it's such a
Yeah,
small
monopolies
market.
around. It's crazy.
Canada's such a small market on like the global scale kind of thing. I mean, even if you just look at the US, we're a tenth of the population.
Yeah,
We've
but
seen these American companies like Target and these other American brands that have tried to come up here, and it's just the numbers just don't work for them, right? So
well, I don't think the numbers don't work for them. Is that they get bullied out. I like you don't realize that there are huge monopolies in this sector and like
sure.
telemarket, like everything, and and as soon as someone comes out to try and compete with them, they go and buy them out. So there's no competition. And like I
A
was
lot of
on,
regulation up here.
yeah, it's
There's a
insane.
lot of regulation up
When you
here.
look at this US, and yes, there are a lot more people, 100%,
A
but there's a
lot
lot more
more. 10
competition.
times. 10 times
Yeah.
the amount of people.
Right.
You drive through these small towns in the US and you see these massive department stores and a bunch of different types of restaurants that you've never heard of. So
100%.
I don't know how viable that is here in Canada. Is it just the consumer mentality towards certain brands? Is it the regulations in terms of, the taxation? Like
I just think
I'm not 100% sure.
I just think it's just, like it's been a monopoly and you got all those what do you call lobbyists controlling this. They're trying to keep it this way so they can get richer. I mean, look, you got three big, cellular people. You got TELUS, you got Rogers, and you got Bell. And they literally have the same plan. What's the point? Like they control it. If one ups it to 120, they're all at 120.
Well, I think Rogers owns TELUS too, no?
No,
Or is
TELUS
that
is separate. I
Fido?
think Rogers and Bell are together now. I'm not too sure, but I know they were supposed to Shaw was supposed to come up here, and then I think
But
that got
I think pretty sure Shaw got bought by Rogers.
yeah, something like that. I'm not too sure, but yeah, there's something. Was coming here, and then I think they got canceled out, or Rogers or Shaw bought Rogers, or Rogers bought Shaw. It's one of those
Maybe we
things.
should do some more research
We
before
should,
this.
but I mean, whatever. But the point is that you don't have much option. Like
I agree.
Rogers owns Fido, Bell owns Virgin, and TELUS owns
That's an
Kodak.
American company, no version.
No, it's so like all these
Anyways,
big brands have these off brands. The same with like when you're looking at the produce, right? It's like
same
you
thing with
got your
cars.
snow bees and you got like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah.
other things. They're all the
Sure.
same, right? Different brands like President's Choice across the board. It's like, okay, so that's the same company. But there's no competition. You go to the States and they literally have, they have so much more options to choose from. So it's like that's why prices stay low in the States.
What are your thoughts on Supreme Court ruling yesterday about the Emergencies Act? You heard about that?
Oh, in Alberta? Oh, wait.
No, no, no. So the Supreme Court, when the government introduced
Oh, you mean for the truckers? Yeah.
the Emergencies Act, so
Yeah.
that they went to court and the Supreme Court ruled in the Supreme Court basically said that the Emergencies Act was not justifiable. But
100%.
that was a huge news that came out yesterday. That the government's going to fight it. Some of the cabinet members came out and they said that they talked to the prime minister and
Yeah.
they're going to appeal it. And I think the appeal's scheduled for sometime in February.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your thoughts
I
on that?
agree. I think it's they shouldn't have done what they did. I think it's crazy. They were peacefully protesting and the government didn't like it. It was just I don't know. Everything there is just all weird. They froze their bank accounts. They did all these things. They're just like makes you really think, like what am I doing in this country? You wouldn't see that in the US. Like that's insane, right? Like that would be like, if they did that in the US, people would be walking the streets with their
They
guns.
all got guns.
It'd be
They all
fucking
have guns.
I know, that's the
They're all
thing.
walking
People are
around. In
scared,
some
right?
states, you can walk around or concealed carry and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
a different world. Like they're a republic, we're a dominion. We are very much still ingrained in that British monarchy and all that kind of and that's what the whole war with the Americans was to fight for their own independence and stuff. So I don't know how much you can compare the two countries. Other than the fact that we do share a border with them, and then they're our number one trading partner. And thank
Right.
God we have the U.S. as the country that we border with. I mean,
Right.
it is kind of nice to be neighbors and have a friendly relationship, with the most powerful army anywhere on earth, right?
Right.
So we'll see. There's a lot going on in the world right now. That's
I just think it's crazy. I think as Canadians, we sit here and we take too much. We don't fight back enough, right?
different
Like,
culture here.
yeah, it's just I don't know. Anyway, I don't get me
Totally
wrong.
different
It's great
culture.
living here and it's great, but there's some things like, like I think we should be fighting for, like these tax increases and the carbon tax and all these things. Like they're increasing. Like we pay almost the most for carbon. We're trying to reduce our footprint. You know how much carbon we cause for the planet? You know the percentage we
Like
have? We
1% or something.
like
It's very small. Very
1.5%.
small. So
One point.
I mean, one of the frustrating things is when you look at the main headlines that you see from, global news and CTV and CBC, and there was an article that came out last week where a lot of the forest fires that were started last summer were actually deemed to be arson. So they
Yeah.
had this, they caught this one guy. He admitted to starting, something like 14 wildfires. Now, my take on that is I think it's a little irresponsible for them to come out with these headlines that global warming, climate change is causing these wildfires without having like the full investigation done to come to an end conclusion. They ran out there and they said this is all from climate change. But, I think it's pretty irresponsible for
I don't know, man. Again,
the
put my
media here in
tinfoil hat
Canada.
on. I was watching those videos of how these fires started. And if you looked at it, there's like a timeline that shows like a map, like you're kind of like a shot down map. And they literally all started at the same time, like from different areas. It's just, it might have been a planned burn or whatever. Maybe it was arson. Maybe there was a group that was doing it. It's definitely not global warming. I mean, maybe it's, I'm not gonna say definitely not. I take that back.
They said 2023 is the hottest year on record by a lot.
Well, I mean,
If
just
you
the
check it out
winter
online.
now, it's been really hot too, right? We didn't like all of December, there was hardly any snow. We like one snowstorm and it would snow and melt right away. So, I mean, like, yes, it's hot, but I think it's El Nino, right? So it's just normal that this year is a little warmer.
I don't know. Again, like I think any rational person cares about the environment, cares about the earth.
Yeah.
But when you see these headlines that come out that are supposedly from these trusted news organizations, then ultimately later down the road you find out that, well, no, actually these fires were caused by arson. It's just, it gets you to start to question a few things, right? I mean, are we going to dump billions and billions and trillions of dollars? Because the science is not settled. Okay, as much as a lot of people want to say the science is settled on global warming or climate change, it's not. So,
I don't know. It's tough to
it's
say. Like,
frustrating, right?
I
It's
think
frustrating to have your own opinion without being labeled as some sort of conspiracy theorist and this and that. It's like, well, hey, I mean, like in a democracy, we're supposed to be able to share our own differing opinions and not just label each other as this or that. So, that's
well, you know what, like
yeah,
you hear it all the time. The news doesn't really report anything that would you'd want to kind of hear, right? There's a lot of
they're
things.
bought and paid for by the government.
Well, that's it. So it's
Sorry,
like they take whatever they
sorry.
can and reword it or rebrand it the way so that way they can look good or make that information look like it's something that they can, like the like we were talking about, to put fear into people, right? That's what it is. The news is to put fear into people.
Control.
But
It's all about control.
you don't hear about what's going on in Europe or what's going on in the Middle East or all these things like where you think like some of this news that comes out that you read on like websites or you hear on like social media, you're like, why wasn't this reported? This is insane. Like these like bombings in this area and whatnot. It's just like you never hear about it. It's just like, I don't know.
I think back to when I was in elementary school and we would take history and whatnot. You'd be learning about history. And I remember the term propaganda got brought up. And I thought to myself, wow, like propaganda, like this stuff doesn't happen anymore. Like, look at what used to happen. No, it's alive and it is very, very, very well right now. So, again, I think the average human being, Canadian otherwise, I think loves their family for the most part. Is generally hardworking. They're generally not criminals. They're generally not drags on society. They're generally not degenerates. I think the average person is a good human being that wants to live a good life.
Yeah.
And, it's just frustrating to see what's going on in the world, but the world has never changed. It's always been like this, right? Going back to the Roman Empire, or any of this, it was always the state versus the people. And now that we live in this modern society, I think a lot of us have sort of have this ideology that no longer exists, but it very much does. Look at Davos. Look at all these global leaders that they fly off to Davos in their private jets to lecture us about our carbon footprint and our
Yeah.
CO2 and
Yeah.
it's,
It's crazy. I
a lot of
feel
people
like,
want control.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's just weird times. I think we're gonna see what happens in the next few years, but
It's been a wild ride the last few years since COVID.
yeah.
Think about how much the world has changed since COVID. COVID to me was almost like a 9/11 type scenario
Yeah.
where like life was different after that occurred. People just live differently, they think differently, and it's an interesting world right now,
For
man.
sure.
Lots going on. Lots
I
going on.
mean, not
So
even just that. Like, look in the technology area. Like, you got all the AIs coming out, Chat GTP, everything. Like all these crazy things. It's like, what's going to come next? Are we going to Skynet coming our way? Should we be bunkering down pretty soon? Or there's going to be some killer robots coming to destroy us?
so so I watched a video years ago Boston Robotics or something like that. If you look up and they have this robot and it's like this prototype for some like army machine, and this robots are like running and like sprinting, and they push him over and he falls back and he gets back up, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
like I don't know, like they were
getting
they were
close.
they were using uh police robots in New York City. That got approved a few years ago, like police bots.
Yeah.
So like this whole dystopian like Orwell type of,
Well, I mean, you see drones, right? All these things, these drones that going around, like
we
it's
live
just
in a
insane.
surveillance state now,
Yeah.
right? It's worldwide. In a lot of these quote unquote developed or first world or whatever phrase you want to give towards them. A lot of the modern countries, so to speak. It's just a lot of surveillance, a lot of tracking that's going on. Google wanted to do a smart city in Toronto a few years ago.
Okay.
Supposed to be Sidewalk Labs. It was this big project, and at the time I didn't really understand, but there was a lot of locals that had pushback on this smart city. And on the surface, a lot of these things on the surface, they seem like these utopian like type of like, oh, we're heading into the future, and then you start to hear some of the arguments about the surveillance and the tracking and
Just
um,
information. They're just trying to get to know you better, right? They want to know exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
I saw a really kind of scary interview with the chief of the, I think, chief European bank, and they were interviewing her about these CBDs, digital currencies,
Okay.
and they flat out asked her like, isn't this going to give more control? And she says, yes, there absolutely will be. So nothing is set in stone from my knowledge, but she was talking about essentially the way she had put it exactly was that any purchases over €1,000 would be tracked, and there would be certain limitations on what you could buy and what you couldn't buy.
Yeah.
She brought up this idea of maybe purchases under 300 to 400, they wouldn't be tracked, which is probably a lie, anyways. But it's I don't know. When I first heard about central like digital currencies, my first inclination was like, yeah, like every single dollar is going to be
Well, it's already
tokenized in some
digital. What are you
sense and
talking
tracked,
about?
but it's not, because it'll have like a unique number to it, and
Right.
you'll be able to track. Like if I e-transfer you $1,000 right now, I don't think that the government can see like serial
No, maybe not the
number.
government, but the bank keeps track. I mean, they probably have a certain like anything over 10, they send it to the government, right?
Sure.
So I mean, it's just like we're getting to that point where it's like, crypto and all these things, like, yeah, they're going to come relevant. I mean, you ever heard about the global reset for the dollars? Like, there's supposed to be a reset on the economy, and just like because like
So
they're
they want a global digital dollar, and
yeah, so they can control everything and see what's going on. I mean, China is big on that too, right? All the surveillance, like we are saying, social media, like you got to make it
850
more
million,
sorry.
850 million active surveillance cameras the government, the CCP has around China. 850
Yeah.
million.
And like
So
imagine like our AIs are getting smarter, they can track it, they can, like you can see things. They're just gonna have the programs controlling all this. But like where do you see AI coming into real estate? Do you think at one point realtors are going to be non-existent? You think
it's
at
going
this
to
point?
change, of course. It's absolutely going to change, like every single other industry. But for someone who's worked there, and this is not, oh, David, you got your realtor hat on, you're trying to protect your industry. It's none of that. But if you've worked in this industry for long enough, you know that it is a human to human business, at least as of now. I don't know how sophisticated AI is going to get, but it's a very emotional thing. And although you can program emotions into AI and whatnot, I think, having another human being to work with you, like,
But what
there's a
emotions
lot
do
of
you
layers.
bring to the
There's
transaction?
a lot of layers. It's not about the emotions that we bring as agents. It's about the assurance. It's about the knowledge and the experience that we have,
Yeah,
right?
but I mean,
So
like, think
could
about
I?
it. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no.
Think about it. Like, there are a lot of agents who have no experience, right? They just get into the business, and then you hear these stories where they pay like 200K or 300K overpriced for the
Sure.
house, but they had a realtor, and the realtor just doesn't know. Like, if they had an AI system where they plugged in, like, you wouldn't see these crazy increases, right? The emotion would completely be removed.
Yeah, I think in theory that there's a world where the job of a realtor is obsolete, but you could literally say that for anything. I was wrong a few years ago with AI because I thought some of the last jobs to go would be creative jobs,
Yeah,
digital art, like whatever that term is, digital, like
design or whatever. Yeah.
design, whatever, you know what I mean? And now like you go on ChatGPT and you look at some of these AI. they're generating like
Yeah.
incredible things. The chat GPT can write you a script,
I know we were
for
playing around with it late
you
last
type in like
night.
write me a movie script for a Western, and it starts opening up. The cowboy comes, it's
It does miss something because you read it and it feels like it's
it's
missing something,
new.
but
It's
you kind
new.
of put that human element
Wait,
into it and it's like done. It's like half the work's done for you.
so I think there was a big writer's strike
Yeah.
in Hollywood that
Yeah.
kind of, was at like the onset of this whole like, hey, we're gonna lose our jobs kind of thing. And so AI is no doubt gonna drastically change the world. It's just a matter of like what else will be changed into that. Like, we can have a society where we have police robots and they can be programmed and
Maybe not even police robots, just like drones that are just flying around the city and you speed, they take a picture of your license plates and you get a
sure,
ticket in the mail.
all under the guise of security and protection. And hey, you got nothing to worry about if you're not doing anything bad. There's nothing to worry about. We're gonna track exactly what you spend and where you spend it. And I think people don't care until it affects them. And I don't know. I think like the government's supposed to be for the people, by the people, at least in the US, but the government's supposed to work for the people. And
Yeah.
increasingly, it's the government against the people. We're going to tax you to death. We're going to have these outrageous spending budgets. We're going to run, massive deficits. We've doubled the Canadian national debt has doubled. The
Well, the
current,
value of
the,
money has
cur-
dropped
the
significantly.
current government, the current government has accumulated more national debt than every other government previously combined.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
you
they're
don't have to
coming
be
out.
a PhD to know that that's not a good thing.
Yeah. But they're also coming out with the global, like what is it? The income, the
UBI.
yeah, universal base income. And I was reading, it's like by doing this, it's going to be $1 billion or $10 billion deficit. I can make the calculation. I think it's $1 billion deficit every year
Sure.
just for that.
It,
Like
it,
obviously they're going to give you money. Guess what? You're going to get taxed 10
so
times
it,
more.
so it's a scary thought because of course we need to have government programs for people. People fall in hard times, life is not
Yeah.
easy, right? People go through rough times and like we all need to help each other as a society. That's what civil societies, in my opinion, that's how you progress forward. It's not like, oh, you lost your job, or well, go sleep under no,
No, for
we have
sure.
government programs. But if we start introducing things like universal basic income, it's going to incentivize people not to work. You already know. You know people. You've heard of
Yeah,
people.
but the thing
They
is,
they
what do you
manipulate the
think?
system.
You know,
You know,
what do you think is going to happen? They start giving everyone $2,000 as soon as you're 17.
it's
17 PR, anything, you get $2,000 a month. Okay, great. What do you think is going to happen? Our milk's going to be $100 for milk. Our rent's
again.
going to triple in value. Like everyone's going to have so much money. And what's going to happen is that the rich are going to get up here and we're going to come down more because everyone like cost of living is going to skyrocket. What do you think? You're pumping in $1 billion worth of income just like that out of thin air a year to everybody in Canada. What's going to happen? Like, come on, let's be realistic.
So this whole fiat currency, world that we live in is, it can be dangerous if the wrong people are in control. If you just continue and continuously print, inflation is a tax on everything. Carbon tax is a tax on basically everything else.
Yeah.
So the only way to get ahead of that is to save and to invest into hard assets. Whether you're buying gold or whatever, right? But you should be, if you have the excess money, you should be investing in things because like the cash sitting in your bank account. This is something I never understood up until my late 20s. I never
Oh,
understood like keeping cash in your checking account, surplus cash is just stupid. It's a dumb thing to do. You should
or
be
your
investing that
values,
money
right? It goes down.
because the bank is gonna, the banks or the credit card companies, they charge you a certain percent of interest, but the cash that's sitting in your bank account, what does a high premium savings account pay? 0.5% or something
Yeah.
like that,
It's stupid.
0.3%.
Yeah.
So while inflation's running away from you, so the real rate of inflation, like, so you know, it's it's a
Oh,
lot going on. It's a lot going on. What else you got?
I don't know. It's just I don't. It just you're just sitting here assuming at some point, things are going to start getting better. I think when elections start hitting in, then we're going to start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. Like, they're going to start coming out with these programs. It's going to be like, hey, we promised to do this, we promised to do that. Like, yeah, the $10 daycare you were mentioning, a lot of the daycares in Toronto are opting
Closing.
out because they
They're
they're
not. They're not even opting out. They're closing because
they're
they're
closing.
underfunded. They were
Yeah.
promised certain subsidies, and that's not coming to fruition. So you know, me and you don't have all the answers. I envision a world where it's like you know, there is collaborative efforts. Like nobody's saying that there should be no tax. I'm definitely saying government programs and benefits and stuff like that. Yes, we absolutely need to take care of people, like,
But I also
but
think like we're getting crazy at the hospitals. You go to the hospital, you're waiting like 6, 10 hours for like
it
anything. It's
it's
insane.
the housing crisis today, and tomorrow it's going to be the healthcare crisis. That's what happens when you don't build infrastructure, when you're not productive, when you bring in mass amounts of people, and
They
there's
can't get
no
jobs.
plan. There's no plan. So what you wonder what the rationale is? Like these individuals, these politicians on both sides, they're not stupid people, right? You would think they're not
I
stupid
think at the end of
people.
the day,
So
they want problems, so they have reasons to,
for us to rely on the government,
exactly, yeah. Because if you, I mean,
maybe.
let's be honest here. Like you look at some other countries, some countries like Sweden, I think is one of the richest countries or the richest country in the world, and they have free public transit, but their cost of living is high. But they're
Nothing's free. Nothing is free.
well, I mean,
Anytime the government tells you free,
yeah.
they're just recycling your taxpayer dollars into something else.
Yeah,
So
but the amount of taxes we pay, I think public transit should be free. We shouldn't be paying to take the bus. We shouldn't be paying to take the train. It should be like this is like a service. We're like the amount of taxes we pay, it's like 50, 60% of our income. We're paying tax on tax on tax on tax on tax on tax on tax. I mean, it's like you getting penalized in this country to work hard.
sure,
It's like, hey, you're making this much money. Well, now I'm going to cut it in half. If you make this much, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to take 75% of your income because it's first off. So it's like people who are working salary. Okay, so they're first off getting taxed on that salary. And then they get a net income. That net income, they're starting to buy things. Well, they're paying tax on that as well. So it's like
yeah,
15% here, 20% here, 30% there. It's like, what are you really left with? And then you got to save. It's just insane. And then you got all these other taxes kicking in that's just increasing every single day. It's just, I don't know.
big government.
I mean, you look at other countries
That's
like,
that's what we get. We get a big government. The other question too is like when you ask yourself logically, as a rational human being, if the government is publicly funding these mainstream media companies, are they going to cover them without bias?
right.
And logic would tell you no, that's not going to happen. In this wonderful world of, nothing bad happens and everything's
No,
on the up and up, and believe exactly what you hear and do exactly as they say. Like they rioted when they tried to tax tea in the US. They had the Boston Tea Party because they wanted to tax their tea. You never heard of that before?
that's not what happened.
Go check out the Boston Tea Party. They
Yeah.
they literally rioted. Like those Americans, like they don't like to get pushed around. So
No, I think I agree, but I mean, look what happened with Loblaws, right? They had that 50% discount on the meats. They said they were going to go to 30% because everyone else is doing 30%. Everyone revolted.
sure.
Now what? They're back to 50%. Well, I think we need to do that more often. I think we can't sit here and let them do whatever they want. You can't just
Well,
sit
where
here
else
and
are you gonna
say,
go buy
hey,
your food?
our prime minister is taking
Where are
an
you gonna get
80K
where are you gonna get your
vacation.
food from? Now the government came out and said that they were gonna tax these grocery companies. Okay.
Yeah, because they had
Tax,
record
tax more. Where
profit.
do you think that do you think these corporations and these executives are just
No,
gonna
they
say,
don't care.
okay, well, guys, guess what? Our bottom line is gonna drop by six. No, like they're gonna pass that along to the consumers.
Yeah,
And when you don't have competition, when you have very little competition, this is what you get. You
yeah,
get, Canada has some of the highest telecom bills anywhere in the world.
yeah. Meat
I, I,
costs, I
I
think, are high. Gas is high. Everything is
I don't
more
know. I
here.
mean, you see what's going on in France, what's going on in Germany. So basically, they want to. Basically, they've been going after these farmers, which again, it's all in the name of climate change and global warming. And 2023 was the warmest year ever, and we're all gonna die. And it's like they want these farmers to kill like 200,000 or something like that of their cattle, and they want to reduce, and they don't want them to use nitrogen. And like, I don't know. It's frustrating. Then you hear stories like, these, I'm not going to say all, so don't freak out in the comment section if anybody's even watching or commenting. Yeah, but then they freak out when they say, well, hey, there were 14 forest fires apparently that they rushed out to the world and said climate change, climate change, climate change that ended up to be arson. So, you should question that as a Canadian citizen.
Well, should question
It's your
everything.
it's your civil duty to pay attention and to seek the truth and to seek what's going on out there. So it's not all bad, but I
I
hate
think
to see taxpayer dollars wasted. I can't stand it. I can't stand
David
it.
hates it when we waste
I-
money.
that's your hard-earned
A
money.
hundred
That's you
percent.
and your family. They're taking money out of your mouth and they're spending it on nonsense. On nonsense. I mean, the amount of go look at ArriveCan, 52 or 56 million dollars, and now the
An app that
government.
should have cost 100 grand. Come on, let's be
Yes,
honest.
apparently there was some app designer who did it from like his basement or something like that in
Yeah,
like in like a in an afternoon or something like that. So
I think it's just funny we just
again,
get scammed left, right, and center, and no one does anything about it. But anyway,
it's okay to question the government, okay, without
it's a
sounding like
question.
some you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I question things when there's a history of news reported that ultimately is not truth. So that's it.
Sounds good. Well,
What else you
let's
got? Are we
let's
done
recap
already? Oh,
here.
we've been rambling on today.
I
Geez.
know, I know, it's been busy. Let's recap here. So market's picking up. We're seeing. I'm like noticing that every time I go out to see properties, those properties are getting offers left, right, and center. It's like yesterday there was like three properties that got over 10 offers. So market's heating up. How long is this going to last? I don't know. I think we're probably just going to see another spring hit. It's probably a bear trap. Let's be honest here.
I think a lot of people think this is the bottom, right?
I think it is too because
Maybe it
I
is.
don't see us going any lower because they're not building enough houses. If they were building faster, yes, maybe we could see it go down more, but they're not building them fast enough. And
So yeah, sorry, go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
that was it. That was my rant.
Um, yeah, no. So like I'm totally with you on the whole, immigration versus housing starts. I mean, they say housing starts were down like 7% nationally last year, and I get all that, but the caveat is what is happening with the average Canadian, the everyday blue collar worker, as a family, middle class. What is going to happen to their jobs? Are they going to be able to afford to renew at 40% more in your, oh, by the way, 40% increase in your biggest, bill that you have in your entire life. So,
Yeah. No, I agree.
it's the society needs a little bit of relief. It's just the Bank of Canada is in a really tough spot now. You can't just start to lower interest rates because, like you said, it's just like this cyclical thing. Well, if inflation comes down a little bit, now it's back up, and now so they're in a tough spot. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
they
the thing
be?
is they're going to
Why
destroy the
wouldn't they be?
economy if they keep it up too high.
They didn't have to drop interest rates to 0%. I'm
No.
not an economist. I will be the first to admit that. I don't have some degree in finance or anything like that. I don't. But why did they have to drop interest rates to 0% and then hold them there for 18
Yeah.
months or 2 months or whatever? It was free money.
Yeah.
Serb, anybody could sign up for Serb. Just type in and
Yeah.
boom, there's $2,000. There were people making more money from Serb than
Yeah.
the jobs that they were laid off from.
Well, the SIBA loan,
Where does that make any sense? I
I
don't
know.
get it. I don't get it.
You
But
had
yeah,
the company loans that like companies got the 60K, right? And they were forgiven 20K. That got called in last week, right? A lot of companies were complaining that they need more time. But I just think, they were just printing money and they just didn't know what to do with it. I think they printed it too long. I think the Serbs should have ended after a couple of months. Like right out, like when people start going back to work, it's just like that's it, no more
well, it
Serb.
was
Like,
longer. The lockdowns were longer than that, though. Like, my whole argument is that, like,
yeah, but lockdowns are pointless too.
and the argument from the counter argument to that is going to be, well, hey, we were in the middle of a pandemic. We just wanted to get people their money. Okay, sure, but aren't we in a sophisticated enough government where you can apply and then based on your earnings from whatever your last T4, your last few pay stubs, and again, I'm not an expert. Maybe they didn't have maybe they just didn't have the manpower or maybe they weren't able to do it somehow, some way. I saw something of the 900,000 plus SIBA loans, something like 25% of them can't afford to pay it back. So that's just
Tough.
that's
I don't
just
know. It's
that's
tough.
just money going away. Money going away.
Well, I mean,
So
now the SIBA loans are getting like that was for the forgiveness, so zero interest. Now they're going to pay interest on it, right? So
okay, is that
doesn't
how
go
that
away.
works?
So yeah, that's how it works. So you have it. They give you 60K. If you gave back 40, they forgive you 20. So they're pretty much giving you 20,000. And if you don't pay that back, then you're getting hit with interest. I think it's like a 5% for 2 years. And then it's going to go up higher. So I mean, it's not the end of the world if you couldn't pay it back. Yeah, it sucks that you have to pay. You're paying interest on the full 60. You lose that forgiveness that they were giving you originally. I don't know.
Six, 10.5% or 10% property tax increase, carbon tax increase, another carbon tax increase, tax, tax,
Man,
tax,
David, you just
tax,
got bad
tax,
news all
tax,
the time.
tax, tax. I'm just reporting the truth. This is just what's happening out there, right? Eventually, the average person is not going to be able to hang on. Everybody's got their limits,
I
right?
think they
So
need to, I think the government needs to stop taxing and stop printing money. And they need to actually like do something right with their budget. I honestly, part of me feels like we need to get rid of like these politicians and actually get somebody who can run a business for the country, but still have like maybe politicians like guiding them. But like, there's got to be a smarter way to manage this because I just feel like a lot of the money, like we talked about the app, they did 58 million when it could have cost them like 100 grand. It's just like, well, where did that other 57.9 million go, right? It's like went to a friend's pocket. It's just like everyone just got rich. It's insane. Like even like we're talking about Serb, you know how much money that was lost and they couldn't keep track of. They had like they didn't want to do an investigation because it was just like who's taking all the money, right? So it's just insane. But anyway,
you need those ninety
2024 is
thousand
looking
dollars.
like a good year.
Everybody deserves a $90,000 vacation. Okay. And if you disagree
It
with
was a
that,
gift,
shame
people. It
on
was a
you. Well, there
gift.
you go. See, it was only a gift. Okay.
Yeah.
A gift that does not have to be reciprocated, of course.
I bet. Yeah.
No
I wonder how
problem.
much money
He's a
he
family
actually got.
friend.
Yeah.
Our
Oh, it was
wonderful
a
leader.
friend he gave it to me. Oh, right, your
Our
friend.
wonderful
How much
leader
money did you give him in the times that were, you
on a
know,
highway to hell.
yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see the elections. I really honestly I wish there was another party that would come out of the woodworks that would just like compete with the conservatives and liberals because honestly, you look at what's going on there, it's just every option is just a bad option. You just don't like there's nothing good anywhere. Everyone's kind of like on this
I still view all politicians as one uniparty.
a
Like
hundred percent. I think that yeah, yeah.
you're a politician through and through. Oh, but we're on the left. Oh, but we're on the right. Oh,
I think we're all the same here.
we're
Everyone's got the
libertarian. We're
same
this, we're that.
agenda.
Again, it's easy for us to say this. And I think, this moral compass of, oh, I would do great and everything. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if I was part of this, like if I became a politician,
You'd be
like
corrupt as everyone else, right?
the God's honest truth is that like I don't know how that would be, like you now once you get into this whole, this whole government, your friends are politicians, it becomes the norm. You view the world from a different perspective. You get raises every single year. You get amazing benefits. You get amazing pension,
Sounds great.
and it just
Maybe I
become
need to be a
maybe it just
politician.
becomes normal. I don't think all
Yeah.
politicians are bad people. I don't.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
think that our government is some of the most incompetent people to ever walk the face of the earth. And they walk around in their designer jackets and their designer suits. They never wear the same suits.
Yeah.
They always have something nice and different. And they wear, yeah. I don't know, man. It's fun. Go take
I
care of your
think they start off good and then they get corrupted as it goes on, right?
sure, 100%,
Like they
hundred
start off
percent.
with a good plan and then they realize they can't do anything. So it's like, let's just play the
You
game
start
and
having
get
access to
rich from it.
cash, right? You
Yeah.
have access to cash, you have access to power. And that's why a lot of these politicians that I always wondered that, like you have these politicians that they have these huge amounts of donor dollars that come into their campaigns. And they have, by all accounts, they have 0% chance of winning. And
Right.
they continue to run, and they continue to run, and they continue to run. And I always thought, why? Well, there's money
Well, what do
coming
you
in.
think?
Money coming in.
Yeah.
So no problem. But
I
anyways,
think what we need to do, David, is we need to start our own grocery chain. We need
I
to
thought you were
start
gonna
our
say
own telecom.
like and subscribe. You
Oh, well,
always
I
get me
guess
with
like and
that because it's
subscribe is
always
a good
towards the end of
idea.
the video. But I feel like at this point nobody's watching anyway, so we should
Yeah.
probably say it towards the beginning of the video. Hey,
I agree because I
like
think
and
yeah,
subscribe, like and
like and
subscribe.
subscribe. Yeah, subscribe, guys. Come on, support. We need it. David needs to pay his bills. He's complaining about taxes. Like and
It's
subscribe.
it's a pretty upbeat episode though.
I think it
And
was
you know
good.
what? Hey, you know what the great news is? There's always stuff going on in the world, so we're always gonna have a bunch to talk about, right? So
I mean, maybe next week we could talk about some more positive things.
for sure, for sure, everything's
Talk
gonna be.
about how the ancient people built the pyramids. All those conspiracies and go through it. Let's
What are you
just forget
talking
real estate. Screw
Hey,
this. Let's just
you're not
open
one of
our.
the you're not one of the alien pyramid guys, are you?
I don't know, man. You just,
Ancient ancient aliens? I don't know.
dude. I mean, think
Apparently, like
about it.
the
Think about it.
geography of like the stars and stuff.
I don't.
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And like David said, like and subscribe and
Thanks
leave
for
us a
tuning
comment
in.
and let us know what you think. We'd love to see your point of view on some
Yeah,
of the things.
even if you think we're terrible and our views are out of this world.
Sounds good. I'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Peace. How do you turn this off?